everyone, it is Matt Phillips. Hey, I am very excited to bring you an interview that I know you are going to love. I get to walk in a few minutes and spend time with the Chief Technology and Operations Officer for the IMA Financial Group based here in Denver, Colorado. Her name, Robin Heller. I've had the great privilege to get to know her over these past few months, and I'm excited to spend some time and talk leadership and talk mental toughness with her. Get out your pens, get out your paper, get out your iPads. There are going to be some gems within this interview you are going to want to capture. Have a great day, enjoy this interview, and we'll see you after. Well, Robin, thanks so much for being with me today. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity to tell my story.
Well, this is great, and I've given our viewers kind of your background, where you've been, kind of high-level journey that you've been on, at least from a career perspective. And obviously the whole point of us sitting together is to talk about leadership and talk about kind of that mental toughness, which you and I've talked before about. Absolutely. But I'll define a little bit more for you, kind of how I view it, at least, as we get into questions. But really just want to, like you said, tell your story, understand your journey, some of the challenges you've overcome, talk about some advice that you could give to people watching this video if they want to progress in their career. So based on, we'll just jump right into it, based on kind of your career path that you've taken over the last number of years, I wanted to start with what are kind of one or two pivotal times when you look back on your career that were just that they changed you or they changed your path. What were those one or two things?
Well, I have a great pivotal moment, as you call it. I think folks that do know me know my background is pretty entrenched in finance, accounting, and economics. However, when you look at my bio, you don't see a lot of the CFO world in there anymore. Yes. It's about all the other opportunities. So what happened, right?
Right.
Well, I was basically a controller for the operational group of First Data. And my boss was Kim Patmore, awesome CFO. And I was basically serving the head of operations and being pretty aggressive in what I suggested he and the team should do with the financials and some improvements. Mm-hmm. And the words were, when are you going to get off the bleachers and onto the field? And that just struck me like lightning, I guess, to say, wow, I've never had anybody say that to me. I've been doing well as a controller, doing all the great things in finance and accounting. But what he meant was I wasn't doing good there. So when was I going to start to own the numbers and own the advice and go make it happen? So basically own the P&L and everything that goes with it to make it happen. So that was in 1996, so very long time ago, but I'd already been in my career a good chunk on this side. So I did go into operations. And it was going to be as a learning development opportunity. Kim Patmore, you can come back anytime. This will be good to well-round out your skill set, etc. And it was one of those, once I went and crossed that line, I never went back. It became the beginning of a journey. And on a path to operations, the client side, technology, etc., etc. But huge moment in my career.
That's pretty wild because, well, a couple of points. First of all, what a profound statement, powerful statement.
Yes.
To almost, frankly, call you out in certain circumstances. Yes. And say, listen, you're good at this, but you could be much more impactful over here.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you had the faith in yourself and belief to go actually make that step is a whole nother thing. So when you think about, like, because a lot of times people think they get entrenched in a certain role or a certain function and there's no way I can get out, no possibility whatsoever. I've been labeled a fill in the blank,
right.
and that's what I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And we constantly talk about how do we fully maximize our skill sets and the gifts we've been blessed with, and how do we take advantage of that? And you were able to translate it over. Talk to me about when you first stepped into that operations role. What was that like? How did you kind of mentally approach that and attack it?
Well, everything you're saying is spot on, and that's a huge theme to my whole career. And what I learned is you got to get out of the box. because there's skill sets we don't even know that we have because they haven't even been tapped. So it's just like there's a muscle that we have, it just hasn't been developed. So how do you develop it? You got to go work it, right? And that's what I learned. I was scared to death. I was going from a CFO organization where there's MBAs, CPAs, we all have a bunch of initials behind our names, and we're all type A personalities and gunning for the same things. So to go into large scale workforce environments where it's back office, you've got frontline employees now, and you've got many of them that have to deliver the results. So you have to influence through others. You have to motivate. You have to give them the vision. And those are all things that I've done in a very different environment. So talk about mental toughness, stepping out of the box. Yeah, very scary. And what you don't know is until you go and try it. Do you like it? And do you like it? Can you get really good at it? And that was a new passion that I found that I didn't even know I had, is I liked working with people. I liked building teams. And if our team wasn't so great, how do we make it better? And that was something I learned, and it was by one. First, you gotta be authentic. I didn't know it, and this was a time I couldn't go fill the gap. So you learn a lot of other things on how to lead, and like I said, we don't always have the exact formula, but you go in there authentic. It builds trust and respect. You gotta earn that, and then from there, they'll follow you and they'll work with you. And that was some of those early learnings that I got from that, leadership development opportunity.
Right.
I did. I got a lot of development on the job, but I learned a lot about myself, and it helped just shape, to your point, what was that next thing? Because it was, now I'm not, once you do it, you can go repeat that. Yes, it's fearful going in, but I went and did other job assignments based on, okay, it will be scary, I won't know it all, but we'll figure it out.
Right. When it's, what I found, just speaking personally, when I've switched careers or functions in companies, it is that scary, it's very scary.
It is.
And it can be intimidating. And what I found when I got into those roles is, as long as you have to take that step back and understand where your strengths are first, because that's what's going to lead you in there, right?
Absolutely.
And you've been successful, otherwise you wouldn't have been given an opportunity in another role. And so, but it's understanding those strengths before you go in it, knowing that I'm going to showcase these a little bit, and then I'm going to try to learn some other things along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was it was a scary moment, but a year into it, it's like, oh,
It wasn't so bad.
it wasn't so bad after all.
Exactly.
That's pretty wild. Was there another kind of pivotal moment aside from that one that was that impactful?
I would say because I've been blessed with a lot of mentors
Yes.
in that career space. So Jack Calabrese was the one there, and Kim Patmore, kind of in that dual capacity.
Yes.
I would say another big one was with kind of the Rick Duquesne and Christina Gold asking me to help lead the spinoff of Western Union from First Data. Again, big transaction at Wall Street at that time. It was
Yes.
one of the biggest or the biggest that year, and very tight timeline. So again, never done anything like that before. But again, your skill sets showcase, people trust you.
Yes.
They will follow you and help you get to that ultimate goal.
Yes.
And that's what happened. We put a stellar team together across all the disciplines to create an independent First Data and an independent Western Union. But that was another pivotal moment. It's like, wow.
And that sounds like a culmination of lots of other roles you've been in coming together, because that was 2006.
It was 2006.
You had a public company in First Data, which had a huge subsidiary
Yes.
of Western Union. And then during that spinoff in 2006, now we have two,
Exactly.
one new public company in Western Union and one's gone private.
Yes.
That's a enormous transaction.
Exactly. And that's just it. It has so many transactional components from just the deal.
Yes.
So
Yes.
SEC, IRS, all those things, but the people aspects of, you got to set up fully functioning, not just the business side, the infrastructure to run the business. So
Yes.
all your departments. So a lot of things going on.
So if you were to walk into an interview now,
Yes.
and they say, what are your biggest strengths? What makes you such a a great leader, a great person, what would you tell them? What are Robin Heller's strengths?
Well, I used to have some of my team folks like give her the ugly problems, she'll go in and fix them.
I like it.
I like to say this, like, you know what? If there's complex issues, let's go solve them. They don't have to be ugly or a fix-it. The complex problem could be a growth issue. It could be, you know, you got to make a transition in a market. Yes, there could be some broken things. There's broken things in lots of organizations, lots of places. So, but I think it's about, if it's nasty and complex, send Robin in, she'll build the team. They'll get it done, and they'll get it done together.
That's a very good point that I want everybody to pay attention to. Not a lot of individuals would take on those complex projects. I think that's very unique in companies, and it could be within your small, what you think is a small little function in your organization, or it could be spinning off a major division of a company. But it sounds like you in multiple areas have been given that opportunity to, hey, here's something that no one else is almost raising their hand for, and your hand shot up, and you went for it.
And I think that's the part is, you know, sometimes my hand went up, sometimes I got volunteered.
Someone lifted your hand for you.
Exactly.
Yes.
But it was, you got to seize it.
Right.
And I think that was one of the things, again, many times over, I just kept learning from that. Boy, you come out the other side a much stronger, better person, both professionally and personally, because you learn about both in those situations. So, absolutely.
No, that's great. You know, one thing that is kind of a big topic now is women at the senior level in organizations, and I did want to spend some time talking a little bit about it, because obviously you've progressed very, very high up in your career, and you've been with multiple great companies.
Yes.
I'm just curious to hear your opinion, you know, especially for the women watching this, you know, where should they focus their time and energy and effort to continue to make those steps? And then also from perhaps a male perspective of, you know, how do we have more openness to it, or be aware of the right skill sets instead of...
Well, first and foremost, we are wired differently. And that's a good thing. We need that for the world to operate, for companies to operate, for our personal lives to operate. And I think it's respecting that difference and being complementary. So I look at it as complementary leadership, balanced leadership, because we need the differences to make us whole. I have been very blessed in my career. So to have started out with First Data, the whole Western Union, Charlie Foti was just one of those leaders that he didn't care if you were a man, a woman, your race, your sexual orientation. He was all about results. And so I got a good role model early, and I know a lot of my peers didn't get that. Now, did I show up to a lot of different meetings as I moved from department or did those rotations that I was the only woman in the room? Oh yeah. But at least with the culture I was in, if I focused on the results and was, you know, bringing the value system that I brought to the equation every day, it wasn't a traumatic experience. It was a good experience. But again, I was at a time in financial services, it was very male-dominated. So I did start doing things outside of First Data to make sure I wasn't naive to the fact when I went into a customer's place or something like that, so that we could be prepared.
Right.
And that was tremendous help to get some of that education. Again, what are those differences? What are tactics and techniques that we can work together and do better? We're not where we need to be as a society. Definitely at the board level, public boards, women still only represent, you know, maybe 15 to 17% of the board seats. So that's something I'm very passionate about now and working on, helping the awareness and more so helping women with the skill sets to get there. And one of the biggest skill sets that women don't really stress is their strategic muscle.
Interesting.
Women, and I'm going to stereotype or generalize, but basically we are the organizers. We can get more done and capacity-wise, and so it looks like we're very detailed-oriented and we're just on our game.
Yes. Sometimes
that doesn't show the strategic muscle because we're focusing on, look what I've all done.
Look what
versus
I've got done versus
where are we going?
where are we going?
How do we
Yes.
get there? Even though we're doing some of that. So
Yes.
that's something that, I was gonna say, that's all great, because you gotta have that too.
Yes.
Gotta have the credibility, but think more strategically and more visionary wise. Where are you using that muscle? Because at the end of the day, that's what boards need. You're gonna come into a board position, you're not gonna do the management's job and role.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Even though you've had the experience of doing that, they're needing you to help them with other things. So that's one area in particular that we're really just trying to help women. Like I said, flex that muscle, show that muscle, get your PR around that muscle.
Right. Right.
So that we can start to make some difference in the statistics.
But yeah, that's really interesting. I've never heard it put that way before, to be honest. And you're exactly right. When you get at that board level, when you get to those high positions in companies, kind of the C-suite, even
Yes.
right below that, you have to have that vision of where are we going? How do I bring my people up behind me?
Exactly.
And that's a very interesting point. And kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, it's like when you walk into a position, you may have a strength in a certain area.
Right.
So how do you still use that, but kind of bring up and develop some of those other areas? So I know you do a lot of work around the Denver area
Yes.
and around the nation as well on that, and I appreciate you kind of giving that perspective on. I think that's again something I haven't heard, and I appreciate that.
No,
Yeah.
and there's, we could talk about all kinds of things, right? That could,
Right,
that could be an all-day
Yeah, we-
session,
yeah, we-
an
we'll
all-day
be here all day
workshop.
talking about this, exactly.
But that's why that one thing, I think, could be such a differentiator.
That's interesting.
So, like I
So
said,
raise your hand
raise your hand.
and be willing to put out there where you're going, create the vision.
There you
Two big takeaways. You've mentioned a couple individuals so far
go. Yes.
that you've dealt with who've challenged you, but as you look back at your career, who are those 1 to 2 individuals, those leaders who have just made an enormous impact on you?
One that I haven't mentioned that is very, very special to me is Dave Trinan. And he's in Omaha, and he's at West Corporation, but we were at First Data together. And so one of my very early superiors, if you will, in the finance and accounting department. So not only was he and is brilliant, but he has and exhibits his values in the workplace. And so for me to see that early on in my career was pretty special, because he valued family, he valued good work product in the environment, and how he balanced and brought that together. And so he was definitely one of those individuals that he was authentic. He did walk the talk. Who you saw inside the workplace was who you were going to see outside the workplace. And so that was pretty special to get that early on, because again, that doesn't always happen. So very special. We still stay in touch today, even though I've been in Colorado for almost 25 years. He's still just one of those special people that touched, like I said, my heart, and how then I started to shape and mimic and role model my own leadership style.
That's pretty well. Was it something in particular, like with the amount of time you got to spend with your family, or just, hey, listen, folks, we're going to be full of integrity. We're going to approach things a certain way. We're going to, I guess, get at this balance concept. But
it was both. I mean, it was. And granted, I don't even know if we talked work-life balance back in those days. I don't know if that term
that's the new buzz phrase. Yeah.
Showing my age here. But it was just that he role modeled, okay, we work hard, we play hard, our family's important. It was kind of all of that, because we were growing exponentially at that time. So we did work crazy hours, but we were valued. And I think that just carried through, that he was just one of those individuals that genuinely cared about his team, about his family. So you saw that. So did balance come into play? Prioritization come into play? Absolutely. Even though we may have not had the buzzwords attached to him at that time.
Correct. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And I will be having the great fortune of meeting him.
Yay.
Sometime soon. So
Very good.
I'm excited to sit down and talk to him. Let's shift a little bit to kind of this mental toughness concept.
Okay.
A being tough of mind. And I'll tell you in a minute kind of what my definition is, but
Okay.
I guess first and foremost, how would you personally define what a mentally tough individual is or how they act? And then is there a time in your career where that was challenged, and how did you push through that?
Okay. If I had
Loaded
to pick,
question.
That's very loaded. If I had to pick one word, I would say resilience would come to mind to me for that. Because definitely mental toughness has come into play as I had to take on each of those new assignments going into something totally unknown. But probably my biggest mental toughness story is it's kind of a combination of a work and personal situation. So I'll go back to the Jack Calabrese's get off the bleachers and onto the field story. So I did do it. So now I am promoted to a vice president at a very young age with huge responsibilities, become a new mother in that same space, and 6 months into being a new mother, my father dies. Unexpectedly. Very young, 54 years old. Talk about being overwhelmed. Job I really don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm a new mom, probably don't know what the heck I'm doing there either.
Right.
And my dad was my go-to mentor, advisor. He had been, just the one my whole life that supported me, was the biggest cheerleader, all those things. So to have all of that happen was crashing. And so I had to take care of my mother. I had to become financially responsible for her. And from that generation, think about it, she didn't know how to drive. She didn't even know how to balance a checkbook. Had no clue what we had or didn't have. So, yeah, it was probably one of the worst moments in my life on how do I just get through all of this, and had to figure it out. And I will say probably the one thing I learned, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask for help. I think it goes back to being authentic. And you do really find that you can anchor deep and you can rise up because you've got that base around you. Your team, your family, all those things, and you go after it. And in some cases when it's that overwhelming, you just take one day at a time.
Yes.
And I will say it seemed like it was a fog for that whole year afterwards, because I just, like I said, I had to figure out so much on the family side, and had to be there for my mom and get that. Yeah, I had a big job and I had a new baby. So you just figure it out day by day. And so you persevere is part of it, but I think it's that resiliency that down deep you can bounce back, and you got to believe that you can bounce back.
Yes. And it sounds like you had a lot of great people around you to support you, and I think it started with it was all facets. It sounds like your team at work, your team at home, and I think that's one of the biggest pieces I think about from a mental toughness perspective is when you're having those days where it is difficult. We all have them. We all struggle. There's no magic pill to say, oh, you're mentally tough now.
No.
You're going to have those struggles, but the people you surround yourselves with, it can be life-changing.
Yes.
Because those days when you don't want to get up or you don't want to take that next step,
Exactly.
you have people there to either kick you, push you,
Right.
motivate you,
Yeah.
or hold your hand and walk with you
Absolutely.
through those.
Absolutely.
That's such a huge lesson, that the asking for help piece,
Yeah.
knowing that it's okay,
It's
and
okay.
you're not weak, and
No.
you're not,
In fact,
you're going to be okay.
it makes you stronger.
Yes. It's an opportunity to learn, to build those around you, to
Exactly.
That's great. No, I appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah, and that's one, because granted, we've got
Yes.
all kinds of situations that we get thrown into that aren't so pretty.
Right, right. But
yeah, that one was for me. It's still the one that people ask me, like, that was a tough time.
Yes. Well, it encapsulates so much too.
Yeah, it was not just one thing.
Right, right. Yeah, we all have our days where we're
Yeah,
feeling so overwhelmed by that
exactly.
yeah, it's tough to keep going. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Robin. I've got just a couple more questions.
Okay.
I know I'm trying to be very aware of your time, and you're busy, and it's actually, you all can't see, but it's a beautiful day here in Denver, so it's time to go play here in a little bit. But a few last questions. One on the mental toughness side, so how I define it. And I
Okay.
use a very similar word to you as one of kind of my 4 elements. And
Okay.
that's perseverance. That's kind of that resilience piece, right?
Absolutely.
But I also talk about confidence, right? It's
Yes.
confidence in yourself and your team. It's about being focused, right?
Oh,
Focused
yeah.
on the right things at the right time. And then another one, the third of 4 elements, is this concept of control, which is emotional control. So how do I take all these emotions that we have and channel them to continue to help me move forward? So as you hear those kind of 4 elements, the way Matt Phillips defines it, not saying it's the right
Yeah,
way, but the confidence, focus, emotional control, and that perseverance piece. And we'll take perseverance off because you talked about
I've
resilience.
talked about that one
But
already.
as you hear those other 3, which one kind of sticks out to you, and which is one that you would go tell your team, like, if we're gonna stand out from the rest of the employees at this company,
Okay.
the divisions here, other companies that you're competing with, and what one sticks out that you're like, we have to have this to be successful?
Well, definitely in the environment that I'm in right now, here at IMA, it's focus. Being an entrepreneurial company, it gets very easy to go chase the shiny new object, the newest thing. So for us, focus will show that, one, we can get some things done, and if you do that, it also creates momentum, so you can go chase those shiny new things down the road.
Yes.
So out of those, I think focus right now, for IMA in particular.
That's the biggest one. Any tips for folks watching now who are struggling with that focus, whether in their personal life or professional life, on how they can sync it up a little bit more?
Well, that's a tough one because I just automatically have to
Go
do
with
it.
it. Go, right.
I just, focus comes with prioritization. And so I think it threads through, are your priorities, your priorities with your work, your family life, all of those things, do you have those in the right order? And then are you focusing in on each of those appropriately? Because it gets easy, especially in today's time, we're attached to iPhones and things, so we're on 24/7. So whatever the mechanism is, find it, because everyone has a different mechanism to help make it work. I'm still a Post-it note girl,
Right.
so very old school,
Right.
but it works.
Yes. You have your system.
I have my system, but it keeps me on track. I do those things first before I go into, as I call it, email hell, or any of those other places where it gets easy to get lost and scattered.
Yes.
So find that mechanism.
Okay. And that's huge. And one word you brought up when we talk about prioritization, you brought up a little earlier, you brought up a couple of times actually, which is fabulous, is this concept of value, right? Meaning, what value is X, Y, or Z adding, and am I focused on the one that's going to add the most value?
Exactly.
So if you're in a sales organization, probably the most value is you picking up the phone and establishing a relationship.
Absolutely.
Rather than you messing around on LinkedIn all day long or something like that, right? But it's going to that challenge,
Yes.
knowing that that's going to bring the value, and that goes. I picked on sales, but
It
that's
could be
across every
anything.
organization,
It
every part of the organization.
We all have high value added activities that we should focus on versus the non-value or low value. But those are easy sometimes to do because you can get them done fast,
Right.
but
Right.
it distracts.
Exactly. I feel like I should I'll put a link to the Post-it notes, the 3M website, so you can buy Post-it notes. Maybe try out Robin's system here. One last question for
Okay.
you, and I'll leave this one kind of wide open. But
Okay.
if you were sitting in front of your employees right now,
Okay.
and you wanted to share kind of one piece of advice that's going to help take IMA at the current time to the next level, what piece of advice would you share with them to make that happen?
I think the biggest advice I'd give at the individual, the team, all of this, it's kind of been the theme throughout I guess my story, my evolution. What you do is not who you are. It doesn't define you. It doesn't define a company. It doesn't define many things. So you can get out of the box anytime. It's just up to you.
I love that.
So, kind of what happened to me. Love to say it was by design. I had an opportunity, someone called me out, took it, and wow, what a journey.
Absolutely.
And that's what I learned. And that's what I try to share.
Take chances.
Yes.
Be willing to raise your hand when no one else is raising it. Or don't fight it when someone else throws your hand up for
Right.
you. Embrace it and
Absolutely.
go after it. Lead with values.
Yes.
Find great mentors
Amen.
who will push you along the way.
Yes.
Be willing to maximize your strengths, but also be willing to learn and to get better every day and to think strategically and also tactically, but continue to develop yourself. I could go on and on of all the kind of gems you've left us with.
I was going to say, well, thank
over-
you. I was like, gosh, did I say all that?
You did. I'm just summarizing. The
Yes.
beauty of my job is I get to learn from people like you, and
No.
and I just get to repeat it back.
There
And I
you
sound
go.
like a genius. So, this is great, Robin. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
No, thank you. And if you need us, we'll be outside by Union Station here in Denver, Colorado. Thank you all for watching. Have a fabulous day. Please watch this back. Pick up some of those nuggets, those gems that are hidden in there, and go get after it. Be that leader you're meant to be. Be mentally tough. Be confident. Be focused. Be emotionally in control. And persevere. Have a great day, everybody.